It was May 4th. In the sterile chill of the RCMP's detachment office in Halifax, Nova Scotia, a digital clock ticked with indifferent precision, its seconds slicing through the silence like scalpels. It was May 4th, 2 days since Lilly and Jack Sullivan had vanished without a trace, and their mother, Malahia Brooks Murray, sat under the institutional fluorescent lighting in interview room 3, her elbows tucked in, fingers knotted so tightly her knuckles blanched. Her sweater, the same pale lavender she wore in the tearful appeal to the public 36 hours earlier, now sagged at the collarbone, a stain like tea or maybe coffee blooming near the cuff. On the surveillance footage later leaked and dissected by thousands online, she looks hollowed out, but focused. Not quite the look of a woman broken. More like someone building a dam against an oncoming flood. Across from her sat Staff Sergeant Colin Mears, a 19-year veteran of the RCMP's Major Crimes Division. His voice, slow and measured, looped gently over the details again. The last morning Lily and Jack were seen, the school drop-off that never happened, the surveillance footage that failed to show their car exiting the subdivision, the inconsistencies in the timeline, the 2-minute window between 7:42 and 7:44 a.m., where no phone data existed. The kids' backpacks found in the trunk, not the back seat. Just help us understand, he said, over and over again. Help us fill in the blanks. At first, Malahia answered in fragments, her tone clipped, but not unfriendly. She didn't remember if Jack had eaten his cereal. She thought Lily had her pink jacket, but might have left it at daycare. She wasn't sure if she locked the front door. She said she was distracted that morning, a migraine maybe, or anxiety. Her boyfriend, who'd stayed over the night before, had already left for work.
Boyfriend that stayed over the night. She was supposed to go to work. What did she do with my paperwork? When I was doing a session for Jack and Lily Sullivan, they were a female helping speak on their behalf and a male. The female said, and boyfriend. And then she slipped up and said, me and my partner was in and out of sleep. My partner, Daniel. She wasn't even going to say Daniel. She got to get in here and find my paperwork.
She insisted he hadn't seen the kids. They were still in bed when he left. Her voice cracked faintly, but
Now, last night, Dagum was listening to this, and he said he was up at something to 6 and seen exactly what they were wearing.
he didn't cry. They were just in bed. Then came the pivot. Staff Sergeant Ramirez
Said they wasn't in bed. Said they was up playing around, making all kind of noise, this and that. Okay.
slid a printout across the table, a still from a neighbor's security camera, time-stamped 7:43 a.m. It showed Malahia's car in the driveway. No children visible. Just her, alone in the driver's seat, eyes locked on the mirror, staring back at herself. You said they were with you when you left. Silence. I need you to explain this, Malahaya. And that was when it happened. Her jaw shifted slightly, the way a person does when they're either swallowing hard or holding back a scream. Then, she leaned forward, whispering something so faint, the room's recording system barely caught it. When analysts enhanced the audio later, the words that emerged chilled even seasoned investigators. They were never supposed to come with me. Staff Santamirs didn't react at first, not visibly. He simply asked her to repeat it. She didn't. He rephrased, "What do you mean by that, Malahia?" She stared down at her clasped hands. Her left thumbnail had been gnawed to the quick. Her breathing changed, shorter, shallower, and the room seemed to close in. Mears tried again. Did someone else plan to pick them up? Were they meant to be somewhere else? Still nothing. Who wasn't supposed to come with you? That was the last question she would answer. Because from that moment on, Malahia Brooks Murray didn't speak another word to RCMP officers for the remainder of the interview. For 5 hours they tried, changing tone, switching officers, leaving her in silence, offering water, tissue, a break. But she sat frozen, neither angry nor afraid. Not crying, not yelling, just stone. It was as if something inside her had locked shut. Outside the interview room, the shift was seismic. What she'd said, that cryptic, bone-deep phrase, wasn't just strange. It was a rupture. A phrase that cracked the case open just wide enough to unleash a flood of speculation, doubt, and horror. RCMP investigators paused their working theory, which until then had largely leaned toward stranger abduction. The car was no longer assumed to have left the subdivision with the children inside. The forensics team was dispatched again to the Brooks Murray home with a sharper lens. A cadaver dog was quietly brought in through the back entrance. The search of a nearby quarry was suddenly deprioritized. The focus turned inward. When the leak of the interview transcript hit Reddit 3 days later, likely from an anonymous source close to the department, the reaction was instant, violent.
Your final warning.
The r/true crime community dissected every syllable of Aflav. They were never supposed to come with me. Did she mean someone else was meant to take them to school? Did she plan to go somewhere without them? Was it a confession, a regret, a warning? TikTok lit up. Theories mounted by the hour. Hashtag surge.
She didn't want to see something that she couldn't unsee. Whatever happened right there in the house. Of course she didn't want to talk anymore. That's why she got a lawyer. Whether that's true or not, we still don't know that either. So, maybe 3 different motives here. All right, she's been done with Daniel for a good while. She's seeing another guy. These are just things that it could be. Daniel hurt the kids to get back at her for wanting to leave and cheating on him. Or she snapped, getting home late, probably being on no telling what kind of medication. She done something bad and he covered for her. Or she was just completely fed up and just could have taken both of them out. In that rush of what have I done kind of deal would explain her sitting in the car, not knowing what to do or whatnot. She didn't want to go back in the house. But that very morning, she got her stuff and she cut out. The word pillow has been used so many times from the children. And then, we was talking about her fleeing with the baby, that her mother had sole custody of the baby and probably the children too. I don't know. Um, but I listened to a detective earlier, and yes, she did. She left with that baby. And again, even her being the blood mother to this baby, but not having sole custody, that's kidnap. Morning, Sabina. How you doing, love? They should have told a lot of this a week or so ago. You know, because I was told that she did run away with a baby. Then I heard she didn't, and then I heard the detective say that she did. So, but all this within 4 minutes and 57 seconds. Y'all gonna have to go back and watch this sucker. Morning, love. How y'all doing?
Lip readers tried to match her mouth movement to the leaked audio. Psychologists posted analyses of her body language, the self-soothing gestures, the moment her eyes dropped. One creator, a former crisis negotiator, claimed she recognized the exact posture of suppressed guilt. Another suggested PTSD. A third insisted it was the look of someone finally realizing what they'd done. But the most haunting question, the one—
What did I just say? What did I just say? She's sitting in the car with disbelief because something happened. She snapped. She didn't want to go back in and face it. She didn't want to see it. I'm sure that it probably woke him up. And, she probably ran in, got what she could, put it in the car, and left and went to mommy. But that just coming and sitting in the car was just, like he said, just guilt in her having to sit there with that anxiety built up. Of course, your mind's going to be everywhere you were. And the first thing you're going to think of is, well, I can go to mama's house and it'll be okay. So she's telling on herself right here.
that refused to leave was, why did she stop talking? In the days that followed, Malahia disappeared from the public eye entirely. No follow-up statements, no interviews, no appearances at the growing candlelight vigils for Lilly and Jack, where neighbors held up their—
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Needs to happen, yeah. Now she's claiming that she was awake uh, with the kids at about 6 something. And, on that 4-page paperwork I've got where she put it, has the word boyfriend on it. Okay. Well, they just said that she said that during the interview. Her boyfriend stayed the night with her. That's why the mix up when she said uh, me and my partner. Daniel. She wasn't going to say Daniel. She was going to say her partner. Well, we need to know who partner is. And I got 1 to 2 guesses of who that would be. Uh, and she did not take them out to the bus because the bus driver and the principal done said these kids hadn't been to school in a week. There is no proof that these children were seen in public with any family. But a detective did say she has fled with that baby, and her mother has sole custody of it. So that is kidnap, no matter how you look at it, or if that's your biological child or not. If somebody else has custody and you take them away and you try to leave out of the state, hey, that's a felony. Well, they said probably on the second day I was doing a session, said a boyfriend. So see, there's motive. There's motive. She could have been so twisted up in her mind she just snapped and done something, or with her cheating on him, y'all know how that can go. He could have done something to these kids to get back at her. Now these are just theories. I don't know, but afterwards, after whatever happened in the house, she come and sit in the car, and when especially like a female, they are hurt, they're crying, they're carrying on, they run out to the car and they just sit there and think, and it's a guilt trip because now you feel sorry and bad about what you just did. I mean, that's just humanality. So that's why she don't talk to nobody or say anything. Because when she did that interview that time, she let too much slip. Yeah, yeah, the whole week. So they were gone a full week before they were ever a call made uh, that the children were missing. Well, that's what I was telling y'all the other day. Uh, I studied her just as much as I did him, and she is the type that would take its life and hers. She would not be able to handle prison. Her state of mind is not there for that. She, if anybody be lucky enough, she would take the child somewhere, then do it. But she don't need to get off that easy. You see what I'm saying? Um, but now she's saying she got up around 6 o'clock. She dressed the kids. She got them ready for preschool. That's not at all what Daniel said. That's not what she said in the first interview. But yes, now she's on the run with the child. Yes, she was cheating on Daniel. And what she said, let slip, is that the boyfriend stayed the night that night. And I can just imagine how that went down. No, this is If y'all hear a rooster crowing, it's her dadgum alarm clock. She got to be at work at 11. Sorry, 9:30.
Crayon drawings and photos of gap-toothed smiles. Her social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, even her Pinterest boards, were either deactivated or scrubbed. The few images that remained were re-uploaded by strangers. Her smiling with Lilly on a picnic blanket, Jack wearing a cardboard crown, frosting on his cheeks. Comment sections became battlegrounds. Some called her a grieving mother. Others called her a monster. The split was vicious. Her own family was no clearer. Her older sister, Janelle Brooks, appeared briefly on CBC Halifax, clutching a damp tissue and choosing every word with aching care. "I don't know what's going on in her head," she said. "I don't think anyone does. But we
They
all
don't.
want the same thing. We want the kids found. That's what matters." Reporters noted the subtle shift. Not safe, not returned, just found. At the RCMP's weekly press briefing, Senate Mears was asked directly about the phrase. His response was almost clinically detached. "We are pursuing multiple investigative avenues, and we are not ruling anything out. We are also actively reviewing all statements made during interviews. Beyond that, we cannot comment." But the mood had changed. Gone was the optimism of an active search. In its place, a thick, mournful fog of dread. Every hour without a new sighting narrowed the scope of hope. And the one person who might have held the key, who had been with the children last, had gone silent. Behind closed doors, sources close to the investigation said the RCMP were deeply divided on how to proceed. Some argued Malahia was mentally unwell, possibly in shock, and pushing harder might risk alienating her permanently. Others believed she was deliberately withholding information, perhaps protecting someone. A few even floated the possibility that her cryptic statement was a veiled cry for help, or a coded message to someone else. Meanwhile, the children's father, Jason Sullivan, who shares joint custody and had been out of province on a work trip when the kids vanished, issued a short, gutted statement through his lawyer. "I am begging anyone with knowledge of what happened to Lilly and Jack to come forward. Please, if you know something, anything, I am begging you."
Are you an American
You know,
who's making $50,000 or less a year with no Medicare or Medicaid?
with her silence is definitely speaking louder than words. But no, she wasn't covering for anybody. Daniel was covering for her doings. I suppose he thought that if he went that route that she wouldn't leave and she would stay. I mean, how's that going to work anyway? How you going to slip a boyfriend in the house to spend the night when your husband's there? She has to be off her rocker. You know, elevator don't go all the way to the top. This is stupid.
"Begging you." He did not mention Malahia by name. A week after her last words in that room, RCMP requested a second interview. Her lawyer declined. She was no longer speaking to authorities. Then came the footage. A security camera from a gas station just outside Amherst, Nova Scotia, timestamp May 2nd, 6:11 a.m., showed Malahia's car. She filled the tank, alone. The footage was dark, grainy.
See, she didn't have any kids with her. I think so much built up over that week that she just couldn't handle it anymore. Everything happened a week prior before they called authorities.
But confirmed she was awake and mobile nearly 90 minutes before her claimed departure time. A window of time widened. and with it, the dread. Still, no charges, no public identification as a suspect.
And again, like you said, Tanya, she needs to be arrested. He needs to be arrested for child neglect, regardless. And then, yes, interrogated until they just can't take no more. Until they give in and tell what's the deal here.
No new press statements. And then, on May 17th, nearly 2 weeks since the children disappeared, neighbors reported seeing Malahia late at night in her backyard, barefoot, sitting on the wet grass, unmoving for over an hour. Just sitting there, alone, a light on and
I can tell you right now, that's myth. Morning, Cassie. That's the way people act when they're on meth. They can just sit in one spot or sit and dig for hours and hours.
the kitchen behind her, moths clustering at the screen door. When one neighbor approached and asked if she was okay, she reportedly said only one word before going back inside. Echoes. That word too would be ripped apart online. Echoes of what? The story has now become less about what was done and more about what's being hidden, about silence, about the crushing gravity of what's unsaid, about a mother who once spoke with urgency to the cameras, begging for help, and then within a sterile gray-walled interview room, said one thing and disappeared into herself. They were never supposed to come with me. The weight of those words lingers like smoke.
That's because I believe he offered to cover for her to get rid of all evidence. I believe that's where he plays in the fact.
Investigators still don't know if they were an admission, a mistake, or a warning. But one thing is certain, something shifted in that room. And the clock, once methodical, now ticks louder. What was she about to say? And why, at that exact moment, did she stop? Outside the station, the spring winds of Nova Scotia tangled the crime scene tape on fences and twisted the missing posters taped to telephone poles. The entire province seemed to breathe differently now, as if it too had been holding its breath since May 2nd. Because whatever Malahia Brooks Murray had meant by those 9 words, they were never supposed to come with me. They had turned the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan from a tragedy into something deeper, stranger, and far more terrifying. The investigators kept circling her. Quietly, they began re-interviewing friends, exes, co-workers, anyone who had seen her in the days leading up to the children's disappearance. Some reported she'd been withdrawn, inattentive, missing shifts at the dental office where she worked part-time. Others said she was fine.
At a dental office. That's not what they said last night. They said she's a nurse at the hospital. Because I simply asked the question, is a nurse or doctor signed, took an oath to help people or to hurt people? So there's number 7 lie right there. Hey, Tori.
Just tired. But a handful mentioned something odd. A cryptic comment she'd made at a neighborhood potluck the week before the kids vanished. One woman remembered it vividly. She was standing by the sink, she said, holding a paper plate, and out of nowhere she said, "I wish I could just rewind. Just unbecome everything for a while." We all laughed, thought it was just mom talk. But then she said, "You'll see, soon none of this will matter." And then she walked out, no goodbye. Every lead like that fed a growing unease.
She knowed her butt's fitting to be grass. And law enforcement was going to be the daggone lawnmower. Unless somebody gets to her first. She better watch her biological dad of these kids. It don't take very much for somebody to snap. And when it comes to a child, it really don't take but a second. If he could get to her, she wouldn't have to worry with prison. I guarantee you. She is sitting right here telling on herself one tale after another. They told this out to everybody in the public to start with. And then we'd know exactly what kind of situations we was dealing with. But Daniel was going to be in trouble for, covered, doing something with evidence, and if they were killed, then he'd get in trouble for fooling with a corpse, tampering with a corpse. But still, all that won't add up to what her charges will be. But at this point, who gives a flip about the charges? Let's get them in the jailhouse. Get them talking. If they will interrogate them so much, one of them's going to tell something. The one's going to have more on the other. And just keep them there. Use that baby as bait. Bad to say, but if you don't come clean, you'll never see the baby again. Yeah.
The kind of dread that isn't loud or sharp, but slow and metastatic. And then came the fire. On the night of May 23rd, a small blaze broke out in the woods behind the Brooks Murray residence. The fire department contained it quickly, less than an acre scorched. But among the ashes they found remnants of something man-made. Charred fragments of what appeared to be children's clothing. A melted zipper, a scorched...
Okay. No doctor records, no, I guess, birth records, no anything at preschool unless they did it under a false name. Children's items was burnt clothing. They found her blanket. Then they found a piece of her blanket. And it was in the woods in that little thing there that he built for them to play in. So yeah, he's definitely leading them on the wrong path. The only thing I believe is that she don't know exactly the area that they're in. Now she can pretty well point you which way to probably go, but I bet she didn't watch any of that. That was all on Daniel to have to do. Yeah.
Hair barrette, pink, plastic, and heartbreakingly intact. Forensics was called. The items were collected, but nothing definitive came back. No DNA.
Well, there wouldn't be no DNA on it once it's burned, you dumb nut. Her little jacket was pink too. It had a little zipper on it.
Nay, no trace of the children. Still, the discovery shattered whatever remained of the public's patience. Within hours of that fire, Malahia's home was swarmed by media vans. Protesters began appearing on her street with signs reading, "Tell the truth."
Yeah.
And where are they, Malahia?
Yeah.
She didn't come outside. Police confirmed she hadn't left the property in 3 days.
Heck no. Heck no, she might be afraid her the biological dad's out there somewhere. She wasn't going out that daggone house. Man, I tell you.
Days. And the silence continued. RCMP attempted to serve a warrant to search the family cabin,
Guys, I'll
an
be right
old,
back. I
weather-worn
gotta run
structure
get me
near
a
Digby
pack of cigarettes.
that
I'll
hadn't
be
been
right
used
back.
in years. According to a family member, it was a place Malahai had gone to clear her head in the past. When they arrived, they found it padlocked, dusty, undisturbed. But inside, the air smelled of old rain and something else, something acrid. In the fireplace, buried beneath cold ash, they found a scorched piece of notebook paper. Most of it had burned away. Only 4 words remained, singed at the edges. Don't let them follow. The cabin was swept. No trace of Lily or Jack. But those words, found in what was essentially a family time capsule, deep in the spiral. Public opinion flipped overnight. Sympathy eroded. Online, her name became shorthand for something sinister. Doing a malhaya, meaning pretending to grieve while hiding the truth. TikTok users faked DMs with her. Some uploaded fake jail calls. Conspiracy threads ballooned, some so elaborate they looped in cults, trafficking rings, even supernatural elements. The absurdity didn't matter. The vacuum of fact had become unbearable. People needed a villain, and she had given them silence. Yet investigators couldn't move.
And that's enough to be proven pretty much guilty right there. Your actions speak louder than words any day of the week. Where my paperwork's at? She gonna find my paperwork. It said the female speaking for them children said, I seen them both in the room on a Friday. I know they were together because they were in the back, just like it right there. And I'm pretty sure they're talking about the back seat. No, at the time, it probably wouldn't have had no blood, on anything really, unless, now, discretion is advised here. This is not made for children. If someone put a pillow over even an adult's face, if they press hard enough to close the nose and the mouth, that's going to cause that nose to bleed. When there is so much, put a belt around your nose and head and pull it tight and give it about 5 minutes, see what happens. You're going to bleed like a stuck hog. That's exactly what happens. If she did that with pillows, that's why Daniel didn't hear a ruckus. That's why he's covering for her, saying that he was up. But if that's the case, she's up the same time he is. Because he said 6 something. And she said she didn't get home till late, but she was up about 6, whatever, getting them ready for school. That would be the only way that it would make any sense with saying the word pillow, and it was written about 17 times. Of course, there would be no sound. Them babies didn't have a chance to scream or holler or cry. I guess it's people like us that have to humble down and cry for someone else's child because they sure ain't doing it.
No body, no confession. No trace of Lily's unicorn backpack or Jack's tiny green sneakers. Without evidence, the case teetered in purgatory.
Unicorn backpack. She had strawberries on her backpack. I never seen no unicorn on it. See,
Malahia remained what the RCMP termed a person of elevated interest. Not a suspect, not a witness. Something in between, something undefined.
authorities in Canada are dumber than a box of rocks. If they're not able to label her as a suspect and Daniel as a suspect, they are dumber than a box of rocks. I said the other day, if you turned her upside down and shook her, something would rattle down there in her head because it's not all together. It can't be.
That ambiguity was crushing. Then 2 weeks after the fire, one of the lead investigators, a young detective constable named Elise Cardin, reportedly had a panic attack in her car after reviewing the interview tape again.
Why did the searchers not say anything about seeing anything burnt? I mean, even if you burnt something in the barrel, it's going to get hot enough to make a burn ring around the bottom of it. Or if it's just a pile of clothes or whatnot, you're going to be able to tell something was burnt right there. But why hadn't any of the searchers said that? See, he had plenty of time. He had a week to make sure everything was taken care of, to try to protect her, cover it all up.
According to a colleague who spoke under condition of anonymity, Cardin had become obsessed with the phrase, had watched the footage over 200 times.
This is not a scam. The health food.
The heck you ain't.
Had a theory, one she was afraid to say out loud, that Malahia wasn't alone in the house that morning,
No,
that
she
someone
wouldn't.
else had been waiting, and that when she said they were never supposed to come with me, she wasn't talking about the kids.
Better shut up right there. On that paperwork, it plainly says, from them children, Mom never wanted to see or hear us again. They'll never see us again. That's the very words that come out them baby's mouth. She didn't want to see us. She didn't want to hear us. They will never see us again.
At all. She was talking about whoever was in that house. That possibility reopened a part of the case they'd only glanced at before.
Boyfriend, hello? They think this is.
One detail buried in the initial search log.
Dumb.
A set of partial footprints found on the muddy side path leading from the Brooks Murray garage to the backyard. Small, barefoot, possibly a child's. But next to them, fainter, wider, indented at an angle, was something else, something adult. And those prints had never been matched. Not to Malahia, not to Jason, not to anyone in the immediate circle. RCM.
That's not correct, because they said it matched Daniel's footprint, his tennis shoe print. So they can't go that route.
He quietly began interviewing known contacts with criminal histories. A former friend, a high school boyfriend with a sealed juvenile record, a contractor who had done renovation work on the house last summer and was later accused of stalking another client. But none of them fit. None could be placed within 5 miles of the home on May 2nd. And still, Malahia said nothing. Even her face had changed. In the rare glimpses caught by long lens photographers, emerging to bring in groceries or walk slowly to the mailbox, she looked sunken. Hair unwashed, shoulders stooped like she was bracing for something to fall. Some neighbors said she walked in circles in the yard at night, murmuring. One claimed she saw Malahia digging in the garden for hours with her bare hands, even after.
Again, I pray none of you have, but some of you may have dabbled with a little bit of meth before. I just said it just a minute ago. You cannot stop yourself from digging. You cannot stop yourself from sitting in one spot for hours and hours and hours at a time. Now, if you don't believe me, go out and find somebody doing some meth and watch them. I had a cousin of mine like tore my car apart one time digging around. I had to throw him out in the yard, get him out of my car. They're ignorant. That is meth. That's where the extra money's coming from. That's what they're doing. I've lived it. I've been around it. I did it. I know for a fact, as God is my witness, that is meth. These poor little babies. No, she got to go in at 11.
Mm-hmm.
She got to go in at 11. It's just now 9:56. We still got a little while.
I jumped up thinking that I was already late.
Well, I told them, and
Then I realized what time it was. I figured
I told them to start with. I said, if y'all hear a rooster in the back, I said it's her alarm.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you guys heard it.
You're off till Saturday.
Hey, that's today. I'm off.
Well, no, she's off Friday and Saturday this time.
Yeah,
But at least they get her a regular schedule from 11 to 7
all week. Finally.
The rain started. Another swore she heard her say a name, Cleo, over and over, but no one could confirm it.
Where is my paperwork? The kids' paperwork.
Probably right here.
Well, I need it. Oh, yes, she did have a boyfriend in the house.
Figures.
Well, she plainly said it. She said, my boyfriend stayed the night.
Wait a minute. They were probably polyamorous, or however the heck you say it, and had an open relationship.
I don't know what they had, but
It's probably an open relationship, meaning where you can be
I
together with each other, but also invite people in.
I bet he didn't want no open relationship.
Sometimes the girls will enforce it, and then the guys most likely won't. It's weird.
I wouldn't be with nobody like that.
It's called polyamorous or something like that.
Well, I wouldn't.
Most girls are open to that.
There
Usually
is
the guy tries to get the girl into it.
There is a name, Rosita. There is a name, Cody. Rosita, Cody.
That's better. I can hear better. Tony said they're fixing to get a bad storm. It's going to get windy and thundering. So if her internet goes out, she's sorry.
Yeah, we're supposed to have thunderstorms all day today, too. Smothered with pillow. Guy said the Jack was little Jack was funny. Murder, yeah, mom, but he's a maniac too.
Mhm.
The
Mom
party,
didn't try to cover it up, maybe.
well, she's the one that's flipped out here. Brianna, Nathan,
Hey, Tori.
nephew, and they refer to him as Little Jack.
That's cute.
So yeah, we Cody is bio dad's name. Well, there you go. Apparently, they were crying out for their dad, and she didn't give a flip. That probably threw fire on. I mean, threw fuel on the fire right there. No, not anymore. But his mom, the biological mom, or biological dad's mom, claimed that he wasn't never in no jailhouse. But that's a bunch of crap because he come home on some type of probation junk wearing a ankle bracelet. You ain't gonna come home with an ankle bracelet for no reason. No, that dog won't hunt. But no, he didn't have nothing to do with the kids and ain't seen them in years since they had babies. 10:02. We won't leave here at about 10:30 or a little after.
Good. I'm gonna go make ice cream.
And then came one last chilling development. On June 16th, a voicemail was received at the CBC Halifax tip line. It lasted only 12 seconds. No caller ID. The voice was low, garbled, barely above a whisper. It said, "She didn't lie, but she didn't stop it either. Check the water." Investigators were notified immediately. The message was traced or tried to be. Nothing stuck. The origin point was a prepaid phone, activated for less than 2 hours.
Check the water. So she does kind of have an idea of where they were put. Check the water. Them pipeline trails through there is just full of daggum mud and water.
Before being shut off, burned, gone. But the message sent shockwaves through the team.
He's pissed off. He's pissed off. Him and his mom went and got a lawyer to information that they're not telling him nothing. And the only way he can get any information is through this lawyer, biological father. They're not wanting him to know nothing. Of course, she didn't want to come out the house. Like I said, if he'd have been there and she come out the house, he'd probably tear out right there. Them's his babies too, even though he hadn't seen them since they was a baby, but they're still his. Something happens to them baby, he's got a right to know, and having to go through a lawyer to get it done. Well, yeah, he's pissed. I figured Daniel and her boyfriend and her best never cross paths with him, or they'll probably be under dirt. And I think that's what his mama's afraid of.
Check the water. RCMP renewed sonar sweeps of nearby lakes, ponds, irrigation channels. dive team was brought in. Dredging began at 3 locations within 10 kilometers of the Brooks-Murray residence. Nothing has been found yet. But as the investigation crawled into its second month,
Well, they've tried the best that they can get so far with their lawyer is talking to the DA, and they're telling him and his mom in detail of what's going on, what's been found, this and that and other, because none of her people will talk to him. Daniel and his people won't talk to him, so it's all coming through the DA that he's getting information from. And that's piss poor excuse for a mom anyway, and stepdad. That whatever her and him had, that was in the past. That's like me and my kid's mama. No, I'm not with her no more. I don't love her, but I'd be damned if I'd stand by and see somebody hurt her. You can still have respect for people no matter how you feel about somebody. But it's pathetic that that's the only way he's getting any information.
one truth remains unshakable. The only person who knows what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan sat in a cold room, looked into the eyes of a detective, and said, "They were never supposed to come with me." And then silence. Whatever she saw.
Of course not, because she done convinced Durweed to, cover it all up.
Whatever she did, whatever she knows, she buried it there. And the world has been digging ever since.
Yeah, they are.
Great news, Spectrum Internet customers.
Yeah, they
Now you can
scared
try
death of him.
mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost
He,
to you.
he'd go right back. He'd for it.
Entered a darker phase. Less behind the blacked out windows of RCMP headquarters, among investigators had shifted from professional urgency to something closer to personal torment. The unsolved nature of Lilly and Jack Sullivan's disappearance had begun to rot inside, tasked with solving it. You could see it in the way Constable Elise Carden's hand shook as he lit another cigarette outside the back entrance, in how Mears stopped giving eye contact during briefings. What had begun as a case was now a presence. It followed them home, into their beds, into spaces between the seconds. But Malahia remained silent. No amount of legal pressure, psychological strategy, or media frenzy had moved her. Her legal team maintained she was not mentally or physically fit to continue.
See, she was not physically fit. That's why I'm telling you right now, before she go down and go to the jailhouse or prison, she's the type person that would take her own life and anyone around her at that point in time. So they best be pretty quick and get that baby back. They need to get their finger out their butt and go on. If this happened late yesterday evening or the night before, they better hurry up. Yeah.
Cooperating with authorities. She wasn't formally invoking her right to remain silent. She simply wasn't responding. According to a court-sealed mental health assessment reviewed by select parties, she was cognizant but disengaged and had begun exhibiting signs of dissociative behavior. But that didn't explain the voicemail, or the prints, or the fire, or the note in the cabin fireplace. None of it explained what she had meant. Family and friends, once vocal and tearful on TV, had started to pull away. Janelle Brooks declined further media appearances. The children's grandparents stopped attending vigils. "We're tired of not knowing," one friend told the Globe and Mail under condition of anonymity. "It's like she's stuck in some kind of fog, and the rest of us are screaming through."
No, she's stuck in denial, and it ain't just a river in Egypt. Yeah, well that that dog won't hunt there. I mean, yeah, Malaya's mom was awarded custody of the baby. That's probably what she means by that. But now that she's run off with the baby, that's a felony charge. um, I mean, it wasn't the cousins or uncles or brothers or sisters that got custody of them kids. It was the mom, Malaya's mom. Um, they they just better hurry and find her quick.
Class. The last time anyone outside law enforcement heard her speak was on June 5th in a grocery store parking lot. A reporter from the Chronicle Herald spotted her loading canned soup and instant oatmeal into the back of car. When he approached and asked if she had anything she wanted to say to the people searching for her children, she paused. Not angry, not startled, just paused. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, "I already said it," and drove away. I already said it. That was all. It became a second mantra, a sister phrase to the
Again, her best friend said, "I'll watch the baby while you go out and look for your children." She said, "I'm not going to look for a damn thing." Unfit mother, unfit person for society. It's my opinion. Under dirt, get a permanent address. Hey, look, then we're good. You mistreat a child, and you're scum of the earth.
first. Online, theorists tried to stitch them together like puzzle pieces. They were never supposed to come with me. I already said it. Some believed they were both fragments of a longer thought. Others believed they were unrelated. But for those still searching, still hoping for any flicker of clarity, they had become a kind of echo chamber of meaning. Something just out of reach, like a scream underwater. But the real shift, the new ripple in the silence, didn't come from a break in the case. It came from a 6-second video. Posted late at night on a private Discord server for digital investigators, the clip was first dismissed as doctored, but metadata checks confirmed its authenticity. Pulled from the doorbell camera of a neighboring house. Footage long buried in the early evidence logs, it showed the Brooks Murray residence at 6:57 a.m. on May 2nd. The frame was wide and the resolution low, but you could make out shapes, motion. A figure, a child-sized silhouette, running across the side yard. Not walking, running. And behind it, someone taller, too blurry to identify. The timestamp was damning. 45 minutes after Malahia claimed to have left the house. The RCMP had seen the footage before, but somehow they hadn't looked at it closely enough. Or perhaps they hadn't believed what they were seeing. Investigators now believe there may have been a secondary exit from the house, possibly a basement door, not included in the initial blueprints provided by the family. Forensics returned. Luminol was used on the concrete floor of the laundry room. Small traces of what appeared to be diluted blood were found on a set of stairs leading down. Tests are still pending, but the theory began to congeal. Someone else may have been in the house. Someone who didn't expect the children to wake up. Someone who panicked.
You reckon?
That's true. If there was a second actor, then what Malaya said during that interview takes on a horrifying new tone. They were never supposed to come with me. Maybe she wasn't talking about school or errands. Maybe she was referring to something worse, something planned, something carried out, something that went wrong. And that could explain her silence. Not guilt, fear. What if she's not covering up a crime she committed, but one she let happen? What if her silence is a
But the one she let it happen. She's the one that flew off the handle here, and Daniel was having to or not having to, but he's covering for her. And I guess the boyfriend is convincing her to, get the baby. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Do what we can. Fight it as long as we can. Apparently, we won't get caught. I'm sorry. Sorry excuse for a human being.
Protection, but survival. It's a theory that no one wants to say out loud, not even within the RCMP offices, where whiteboards filled with maps and timelines now sit beneath a growing number of crime scene photos with faces blurred out. Because if Malahia knew something terrible was coming, and let it happen, or froze, or turned away, or bargained, it means the children may never have been missing in the traditional sense. It means someone had them, and still might, but that remains speculation. No one has been arrested. No remains have found. And Malahia Brooks Murray, now approaching 2 months of total silence, remains inside her house, shades drawn, uncharged. The front yard grass grows longer each week. And the stuffed animals left by strangers at the edge of her driveway are beginning to mold from the rain. As June turns toward July, and search crews prepare for...
That's a lie right there, because she's not back at that trailer. She's not back there with Daniel. So all that right there part was the damn lie. Her and her, whoever boyfriend is, I guess, she got that baby and cut out. Yeah. See now, every bit of the heat is on him right now. But this heat could set the standard apart. She's the aggressor in this deal. There's no doubt about it. But they better hurry. Because if she thinks for 1 minute that they're telling her by, getting close to where she's at, yeah, she'd be the type to end her own life and anyone around her.
Another round of water-based grid sweeps. There is one question whispered between detectives in hallways and open threads on message boards. What if she's the last living person who saw them? And what if her silence isn't the end of something, but only the beginning? On June 27th, just before midnight, a neighbor reported hearing what sounded like a scream from the Brooks Murray residence. Not loud enough to draw a crowd, but sharp, cutting through the quiet like a blade through...
Running to the car, screaming and covering her ears and her eyes and all this from what she's done, That's probably the scream they heard. Because with a pillow, them children didn't get a chance to say or cry or anything. It had to be her being all emotions going every which way. And her just sitting in the car for 45 minutes, that...
silk. By the time patrol officers arrived, there was nothing. The house was dark. No one answered the door, no visible signs of distress, but the report was logged. The next morning, Malahia was seen in the backyard again, standing motionless, eyes turned toward the tree line. Her posture, described by a witness, was so still, it looked posed. She was holding something in her hands, a framed photo, maybe, or a mirror. The neighbor watching couldn't be sure. What they were sure of was the way she suddenly dropped it, let it shatter on the patio stones, and walked inside without looking back. When officers reviewed the report later that day, They noted she hadn't been seen leaving the house in nearly 4 days.
Are you currently on SSDI or disability?
Nothing. For the first time since the beginning of the investigation, the daily rhythm of the case ground to near total stillness. RCMP remained tight-lipped. No updates, no press conferences, no new evidence surfaced. In the vacuum, media attention began to drift elsewhere, but in the quiet corners of the internet, in the forums and Discord channels, the threads and hidden group chats, the obsession never wavered. On Reddit, user Dead Lake Hunter posted a chilling theory that the water mentioned in the voicemail wasn't literal, that it referred to a well, specifically an old capped well on a property once owned by Malahia's maternal grandfather, a crumbling farmhouse outside Bridgewater, long abandoned and supposedly sold off after a tax default years ago. The theory exploded across platforms. Amateur sleuths pulled up satellite maps, land title records, excavation logs from the 1980s. The property had been in Malahia's family for 3 generations. It had never been searched. When the tip was passed to authorities, RCMP initially dismissed it as community speculation. But one persistent volunteer investigator filed a Freedom of Information request and discovered something that reignited interest. The farmhouse, though listed as sold, had never transferred ownership. The paperwork was incomplete. The land was still legally in the Brooks family name. On July 2nd, a small RCMP unit visited the property. They found the house in ruins, windows gone, roof partially collapsed, but in the backyard tucked beneath ivy and years of overgrowth was the stone cap of an old well. Weathered, cracked, untouched. Search and rescue was called in. For 4 days, crews excavated the site, pumping out stagnant water, clearing debris, and filtering silt. What they found was inconclusive. No bodies, no clothing. No items definitively linked to Lilly or Jack, but at the very bottom, in the dark slurry of mud and bone fragments, they recovered a child's tooth. Tiny, white, intact. DNA testing began immediately. The public wasn't told. Instead, authorities closed ranks. Malahia's home was placed under discreet surveillance. A plainclothes officer was stationed 2 houses down. Lights remained off in her windows day and night. Still, she didn't leave. When the DNA results came back on July 7th, the confirmation was partial, not enough to make a legal match, but enough to warrant further action. The tooth's mitochondrial DNA was consistent with a maternal line match to both missing children. The probability of coincidence, less than 1 in 10,000. The well had held something. Someone. But RCMP remained cautious. They needed more. They needed her to speak. That afternoon, they returned to her house. This time, they didn't knock. They entered with a warrant. She was found upstairs, sitting in the children's shared bedroom on the floor, knees tucked to her chest. A single lamp was on. The walls were bare, the bed stripped. No toys, no books. Nothing left of the world that once belonged to Lily and Jack, except one item, which she held in her lap. A plastic lunchbox. Frozen themed, scratched, empty. She didn't resist. She didn't run. But she didn't speak. When asked if she knew why they were there, she looked up. For the first time in 66 days, she met someone's eyes and gave a faint nod. Because of the water, she whispered. And then her lips moved again, just once more. I told him not to take them. That's all she said. A new statement. A new fracture. A new door cracked open. She was detained under Section 17 of the Nova Scotia Mental Health Act for psychiatric evaluation, pending further investigation. Her lawyer, present for the intake, issued no public comment. RCMP declined to say whether her words constituted a confession, an accusation, or something else entirely. But internally, a seismic shift had occurred. They were no longer looking at her as the sole actor. Now they were looking for him. The unknown him. The shadow between the frames of surveillance footage. The presence behind the second set of footprints. The one she had been protecting, or fearing, or both. The man in the house. The one she had warned. I told him not to take them. RCMP have since reopened interviews with several men previously ruled out, including the ex-boyfriend, the contractor, even a cousin with a history of drug offenses. Surveillance on her house had captured no male visitors in recent weeks, but a vehicle matching a black 2009 Toyota Camry was seen idling near her home around 3 a.m. the morning before the well was searched. That vehicle has not yet been located. And now, the case has splintered. What was once a tragic story of a mother and her 2 missing children has become something else. Something that now involves legacy, generational silence, hidden land, and a man whose name no one yet knows. But Malahia knows. She always did. And though she may still be silent, her story is no longer airtight. The fracture has formed. A breath has passed through the crack. And something, or someone, is coming with it. By July 9th, the public still hadn't heard the name. The man. The shadow behind the curtain of this story. The RCMP were holding it close. Too close. A fact that only accelerated the hysteria outside. Reporters circled the psychiatric facility where Malahia was being held, their cameras pointed at blank windows. Internet sleuths combed through every man ever photographed with her, every friend of a friend, every coworker, every tagged photo on dormant social media. Even her high school yearbook became evidence. No connection was too thin, no rumor too wild. One name, Dominic Frazier, began trending after a TikTok claimed he had once dated her and liked a photo of Jack on Facebook months before the disappearance. He lived in the next province. He had an alibi, but by then, his face was everywhere. He had to deactivate everything. He told the Coast in an anonymous interview, "I never even met the kids. I only went out with her twice, but now, every time I open my door, I'm waiting for someone to accuse me of burying children in my backyard." Inside the RCMP task force, it was clearer. They were close, but not close enough.
Brianna, Nathan, name I can't pronounce, cousin, nephew, Waterville, I heard them cry. Rose said, I see mud. I needed my mom. Mom was mean. It's not safe in our home. Cody, boyfriend, Rosita, buried, naked. Yeah, mom knows. The road, the house. Mom's boyfriend. A maniac. A lot of country. You have to dig them out. Was injured. Pillow. The word gun was used. Nathan beating him. Rural area. Hurt. They waited. They did it. Even boyfriend. I know they're together. I seen them at the old house. Hit in head. Yeah, it's true. Mom didn't want to see us or hear us anymore.
Enough. Malahia was speaking again, but in circles. One of the mental health workers noted in her intake report that she often muttered numbers, backwards. Sometimes she stared at the corner of her room like she expected something to crawl out of it. And yet, when lucid, she was specific. Deliberate, she drew a symbol on a piece of paper, a triangle intersected with a vertical line, and pushed it across the table to her doctor. When asked what it meant, she said, "It's where he left their names. Their names, not their bodies, not the kids. Their names." The page was handed to investigators. It wasn't meaningless. The symbol matched a carving found on the wooden support beam inside the cabin fireplace, the same one where the scorched note had been found weeks earlier. The note that read, "Don't let them follow." Suddenly, that scrap of paper became something more than ominous. It became a directive. And whoever wrote it had been in that cabin with the children. The RCMP reclassified the case as an active child endangerment investigation with a likely secondary suspect. They returned to the cabin and combed through every inch again. This time with dogs. This time with specialists. This time knowing what to look for. And they found something they hadn't seen before. Beneath the floorboards in a narrow crawl space, they uncovered what appeared to be a makeshift holding space. Blankets, a child's sock, a cracked tablet powered off with scratch marks on the back. Most chilling of all, a word etched into the wood, jagged, desperate. Wait. It changed everything. The working theory turned. Lilly and Jack might not have been killed. They might have been kept. For how long, no one could say. Why? Still unclear. But the word wait, it suggested the possibility they were moved.
They waited. Knew we were missing. They waited. Yeah, and the boyfriend. They know we're together at the old house. Mom didn't want to hear or see us again. They waited. Yeah, this is fixing to get sensitive. Very sensitive. Gretchen is advised. I'm telling you right now. I do believe that these children were abused. I believe they were in very, very bad conditions. They found a tooth of a child. They've still not finished digging in the well hole itself. A few other little small things in there that had been found. Bone fragments, they said. There's a spot on there that says burned. Now, take it with a grain of salt. They were taken out of the home, taken on that property. After the fact, if they did try to burn, then would have been put in that. If it had any sulfurate or anything, that's like a cave. If it holds gases. Some caves, if you strike a match, you're fixing to blow yourself sky high. And wells can do the same thing. If you arc a little speck, it can blow up. If they're put in that with that sulfate, it would eat the flesh from the bone. I've got to go take her to work, guys. I'll see y'all back in a little while. I love each and every one of you.